So all the pro-lifers out there, if you're really that against it, if you really have a problem with a woman, even if she's broke as hell from her having an abortion, then you should put your money where your mouth is and invest yourself to improve the social structures that are around all the neighborhoods that are poor, the people that live below the poverty line. You should push your governors and your administrators to improve the social situations, the social services that are provided. Give them access to free daycare and encourage them with that access to free daycare to further their education, to be able to get some type of training, to be able to jump into the workforce so that eventually they can be financially independent, even if a man is not around. So if you really are a pro-lifer, I think that you need to stop talking, because talk is cheap and it doesn't mean shit if you're not backing it up with action. Hey everybody, welcome to No BS Parenting. My name is Pamela and I'm the mom of two outstanding young men. I'm going to give you my opinion on everything parenthood, but I don't recommend my channel for minors because of my potty mouth. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for future videos. Let's go! Hi everybody, welcome back to No BS Parenting. My name is Pamela. We're going to talk today about abortion. Why am I talking about abortion when this is supposed to be a parenting channel? Because it's obviously the beginnings of what is the journey of being a parent, being a mom or dad. Obviously, this is a topic that is very hot. It's all over the news. It's all over, every blogger is talking about it, whether conservative or liberals. Jackass Trump Tard obviously is talking about it on a regular basis. His last rally in Wisconsin, he was bringing on the biggest and the newest extravagant lie. That is, women and doctors are getting together after they have their beautiful babies and wrap them up in beautiful blankets, that they then have a discussion on whether to execute the child or not, which is obviously a load of bullshit. So I want to talk about the realities of abortion and how it's evolved over time. So let's talk about facts. The facts are that the laws in the free world on abortion have been evolving and changing since the topic has, or since recorded time. In Europe, most of the countries in Europe, abortion is legal. Exceptions are Northern Ireland, UK, and Finland. They have some restrictions on abortion, even though it is legal. Ireland takes it a step further, where they actually consider abortion to be illegal. However, in the case where a mother's health is in jeopardy, then they do give authorization for women to have abortions. Cyprus and Poland agree with Ireland's take. They add another exception, which is for rape. In the United States, which is the platform that Trump is obviously always talking about, the stats recently are 1 in 4 women have an abortion by the age of 45. So 25% of you in the US have abortions by the time you're 45 years old. That's a pretty high percentage. 49% of those women who have abortions are just below the poverty line, and 26% of those women who have abortions are more than 2 times below the poverty line. Do we see a link? Maybe? Possibly. AGC in Atlanta in March of this year was looking specifically state by state. And there are 7 states in the United States where they've been either successful or are attempting to limit a woman's right to have an abortion. And as of now, there's only New York and Vermont which actually protect them. The latest stat Aljazeera is reporting is that Kansas court has recently blocked a ban on the rights of a woman to have an abortion. So they're protecting women's rights to have an abortion or not. Here in Canada, where I'm from, the stats are pretty similar. There's some slight differences between us. So in 1892, it was actually outbanned. It was made illegal here in Canada to have an abortion. If you look through the evolution here in Canada from 1892 up until 2019, obviously our rights in Canada here have expanded. And for the most part, if you're living in a major city in Canada, you have access to an abortion in almost every case. The exceptions are women who do live on the outskirts of a large city. So if you live in a rural area, you'd have to travel fairly far to be able to have access to an abortion. The Abortion Rights Coalition of Canada says that the reality is that abortion is actually on a decline in Canada. And of the women who still do have abortions, 91% of the women who have abortions do it within the first trimester. So that's pretty significant stat. So all the discussions that Trump is having about women having abortions in the last trimesters of abortion for Canada, for the most part, 91% of us are not doing that. Chatelaine in September of last year was looking at, they were studying the growing anti-abortion movement that's happening here in Canada. And there's actually lobbyists who are looking at specific strategies that they're going to bring the discussion of pro-life in the platform for the next election that's coming up here in Canada. So everybody has their opinion, obviously. Conservative people like Stephen Crowder, Ben Shapiro. Here in Canada, we have a YouTube page called The Rebel Media. They clearly are pro-lifers. They discuss the topic in terms of morality and religion. Personally, I think that religion has absolutely no place in the discussion. I'm not a religious person, obviously. By making a statement like that, that's pretty obvious. Why doesn't it have a place in the discussion? Because how can you possibly refute someone's opinion that's based on faith? Faith cannot be approved or disproved. It's very, very particular to each individual. And there's no way that you can deny or accept it because it's based on someone's faith in something that is not tactile. So in my opinion, for that reason alone, religion has absolutely no place in the discussion of abortion. I personally am a mom, as you know. Obviously, I've got two beautiful boys. I've never had an abortion in my lifetime. I did have one time when my now husband and I were dating where I was afraid that I was pregnant. I was late on my period, so I was afraid that maybe there was going to be an unexpected baby, and my boyfriend at the time and I had a discussion on whether or not we were going to keep the baby if I was pregnant. It turned out that I wasn't. And would I have had an abortion if I was pregnant? I don't think I would have. We had the discussion afterwards, and I told him that I don't think I would have been able to have brought myself to do it, even if at the time I was 38 years old. Just because I've had two kids, and I would have always imagined what the baby would have looked like. So I don't think I would have done it. I've also used birth control my whole life. Obviously, I believe in being proactive. If you're living in a sense of putting fires out as opposed to prevention, to me, it's counterproductive. So I've always used birth control my entire life, whether it was condoms or birth control pills and so on and so forth. There were 2 times in my life when my late teens where I took the morning after pill. Now, some might argue that that would be the same thing as having an abortion. I don't think so. I didn't know if I was pregnant. There were 2 occasions in my late teens where either condom broke or spontaneity, your kids, your hormones are raging. Next thing you know, you're naked and you're having sex. And I thought maybe it was a potential. So both occasions, I went to a clinic, saw a doctor who I'd never seen before, and requested, here in Canada, we can do that without having a massive bill, by the way. So both times the doctor asked me a host of questions and gave me the prescription for the pill, and I took them and never found out if I was pregnant or not. So you can have a moral discussion about that. I personally will stand by my decision in both cases because I was in absolutely no place to be making babies, which is a lifelong dedication. So do I believe that abortion should be legal? Yeah, I absolutely do. I think that it is a woman's right to make the choice. However, I'm a little bit in the gray zone. I'm not the complete pro-choice, and I'm absolutely not on the conservative side of pro-life. I think that there should be some type of restrictions, and what they should be, I think that we need to continue to have an open discussion about it. For example, I think that if a woman in the first trimester finds out she's pregnant, she should be allowed to say, okay, I'm financially not stable. The man that I've got pregnant with will not be supportive. I don't have the resources available to me to be raising a child on my own. Whatever the reasons an individual woman would make, I think that she should be able to make the decision. Second and third trimesters, that's a little tougher for me. If we're looking on a moral morality scale, I think that if you, obviously, by the time most of us, by the time you get to your second trimester, you've known already a very long time that you're pregnant. So if you decide to end the pregnancy at that point, baby's no longer an embryo. It is now a fetus. It is reacting to the sound of mom's voice and to outside noises and influences. So to me, there's a certain level of consciousness there. So in my mind, my moral compass tells me that now this is solely about convenience and someone who's not necessarily very responsible, and you should absolutely look at the option of adoption in that case. That's just my opinion. In the cases of rape, I think it should absolutely positively be a woman's decision to have the baby or not. I've seen cases on both sides with women, they have abortions and cannot even fathom the idea of having the baby, and other women who think of the pregnancy being a miracle positive result of a horrible experience. So I leave that to each and every woman. I think that's a very personal decision, and absolutely no one other than the mother should have an opinion in a scenario like that. When in the case where it's dangerous for the mother, a pregnancy, again, I think that again is a woman's individual decision. I know that in my case, if I had already had a child, or if I'd had a third pregnancy after having my 2 children, and in the third pregnancy, doctors told me that my life was in danger if I went through with the pregnancy, I would absolutely have stopped. I would have aborted the child without question, without second thought. Not because of callous reasons, but I already would have had a child or 2 that was completely and totally dependent on me, especially in my case, I was a single mother. So where would they go? What would happen to them? I think it's unbelievably selfish to make a decision, in my case, in my opinion, for me, to have completely dismissed my existing children's needs in this case. So I would have had no problem doing it. Again, individual decisions. People should be able to make decisions that they want. What happens if you're during the pregnancy? This comes up all the time, especially with Christian bloggers. They talk about if during the pregnancy, even especially in the second trimester, through ultrasound and in vitro and so on, that baby has deformities or some medical malformations. In that case, what should a woman do? Again, personal decision. Personally, I would not have the child. Why? I think for a multitude of reasons. Number one, I don't think a child would have a big quality of life, and I know there's going to be a lot of people listening, watching this video that are going to disagree with me. That's my personal opinion. The bigger reason, however, would be if I did have the child and they had some real limitations on mobility, independence, they would completely dependent on someone for their entire lives. What would happen to them when I was gone? Who would I put that kind of responsibility on my other children to have the responsibility to take care of this one? Which one of them would? Would one feel like they were obliged to come forward and take care of the child when the other siblings wouldn't? I think it's an unfair responsibility to lay on my other kids. So personally, in my opinion, I would abort. I wouldn't have the child. Again, see, I guess every single woman has different circumstances, different beliefs. She would decide how to do that on her own. One of the biggest problems I have with abortion is women that have multiple abortions. In my opinion, this is an unbelievably selfish and irresponsible way to use abortion. It is not supposed to be used as a form of birth control. So if you can screw up once. Okay, I got pregnant, I was, whatever, when I started, I don't care what your scenario, and you get pregnant by accident, oops, okay. I'm really not ready, my lifestyle, whatever your reasons, you have an abortion, okay, everybody has the possibility, the ability to fuck up once. You get pregnant a second time by accident. Okay, maybe you need to reevaluate the way that you're living your life and the way that you're being responsible for your actions. Okay, second abortion, not as excusable, but okay, it happens, we're all human. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, okay, I have a problem with that, because if you're using abortion as a form of birth control, then in my opinion, you're not being responsible, and you really are diminishing the huge power of giving life, making life that women have. Now that argument could be brought back to the poverty discussion, because as we've discussed earlier, the majority of women that have abortions are below the poverty line. So why do they make the decision then to have abortions? Well, for obvious reasons, right? Having a child is extraordinarily expensive. There's no support system, financial or otherwise, for them to be able to raise a child and give the kids what they deserve, which is the best fighting chance they can. So all the pro-lifers out there, if you're really that against it, if you really have a problem with a woman, even if she's broke as hell, from her having an abortion, then you should put your money where your mouth is and invest yourself to improve the social structures that are around all the neighborhoods that are poor, the people that live below the poverty line. You should push your governors and your administrators to improve the social situations, the social services that are provided. Give them access to free daycare and encourage them with that access to free daycare to further their education, to be able to get some type of training, to be able to jump into the workforce so that eventually they can be financially independent, even if a man is not around. So if you really are a pro-lifer, I think that you need to stop talking, because talk is cheap and it doesn't mean shit if you're not backing it up with action. That's just my opinion. I think that the reality is that someone who's living a good life and has all kinds of power financially is not the one that is groveling over the idea of bringing a child into the world and if they're going to be able to feed it or not. So I think this is a discussion that has to keep being brought to the forefront. I think people need to stop being so bloody judgmental, because unless you're in the person's shoes, maybe you shouldn't talk. And if you're not a woman and you haven't been a single parent, I know there are men out there who are single fathers. Don't be crucifying me on your comments. I know that there's a lot of them. But if you've never done it, if you've never been the one to step up and take care of the kid, because the reality is that when children are born, married or not, fathers can it's easier for them to step away and not be responsible for the children. There's many more single moms out there than there are single fathers. So unless you've been there and you've done that and you've lived the struggles that come along with being a single parent, and you've never had financial struggles, then maybe you need to reevaluate before you open your pie hole. That's just my opinion. Thanks again for coming. Please hit the like button, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks.